Thank you for tuning in. We are Astrano, and for today's podcast, we are going to talk about false history, and it's a very deep topic. There's a lot of things to dive into, but today we're gonna focus on a couple things that we find. For me, I find interesting. The first one is the food and health system, and the second one is just the history that they teach us. So I'm gonna start the conversation just by sharing this story that I find interesting. Um so for me, growing up in the Philippines, we were majority of the people there, 80% of the population is Catholic. And for me as a young kid, I would go and I would look at these people and then go to church, and then I would always have this question in my mind, and it's like, why are they doing this? What's going on? And then as I did my research, it turns out like before before we were praising Jesus or whatever, we would pray to the land, to the sun, and to the water, and we would pray to nature. And then when I came here to Canada, I learned about the native people here, the indigenous, and I saw like, whoa, there's such a parallel on these people's history. And then I realized it's the same thing. It's like the people that gets to tell the story are the ones that won the battle, you know and that's something that we want to dive in today, because it's important to be aware of the truth. And sometimes most of us are going on about our life and we're not really aware, and it's okay. But the second part is the food and health system. So especially with the health system, I was just mentioning earlier about how I read this in this book, The Law of Human Nature, about this man. I think it was Rockefeller or Rothschild. I don't know which one, but he paid a bunch of schools to study or to teach a curriculum, to teach doctors essentially about you know how instead of like using alternative medicine, the holistic approach, like how do do you guys know how do you say that? Ayurveda, like the Indian
Oh yeah,
medicine?
Ayurveda.
Ayurveda. Instead of kind of tap, they labeled that as an alternative, and then they said we're gonna do research on oil based medicine. And to me that's very interesting, because it kind of it's kind of like, why would you replace something that has worked for millennia, you know and that brings us the question. So, in your own perspective, guys, like what does false history mean to you? Like when I say false history, you know, what comes to mind? What's something that marinates in your mind?
Let it marinate.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that comes to me when you're saying like false history is just the sense of like it all is seeming false because like you're saying, they like this guy, he was rich, right? And like if you dive into like the Rothschilds and like the Rockefeller family, both very wealthy families, one owned the banking systems that
Mm-hmm.
we still have today and they still do, and then another was like a giant oil and gas guy, and that's actually why they turned, or he turned to this form of medicine, because he found a way to make medicines based off petroleum
Mm.
instead of using like plant medicine and like things that have been around for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
So it's this false history stems from the same thing as we were talking about education. Our education system was, thought up by a group of people who all had the same idea, and they were like, okay, like we're going to share this idea with you. The
Yeah.
same thing can be said for false history as well. Look at these textbooks, look at these history books. How do we know that that is
Real.
the complete truth?
Yeah.
How do you know if the history has literally been wiped out,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many like there's records of, you know, churches and, you know, the big guys, whoever, like they'll like burn books, like tons and tons of books, tons and tons of records, history. You know, they want to maintain the narrative that they have. And like King mentioned in the beginning, it is the guys who win are the guys who
Gets to
are,
tell this.
yeah, who are in control, that want to maintain that control. Because when people have information, when people have history to look at and be like, no, it's been like this before, that
Mm.
devalues the system that they're trying to enforce. So if they can just, you know, wipe it out, it never happened, you don't have any proof that that was ever a thing, you're crazy,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
they can
Yeah.
maintain this, you know, this is how it's always been, this is how it goes. You can't think otherwise because because otherwise, you know, you'll disappear. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I've read, they say, I've read somewhere they say knowledge is an agent to freedom, and maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
why they wanna, you know, eradicate all these information, and yeah.
Yeah, and they do it with the media too. Um, a big thing, like even with Instagram and Facebook right now, like they are patrolling like any information that is not with, you know, the guidelines, or you know what they're trying to push, the narrative they're trying to push. It's like nope, deleted,
Mm-hmm.
cannot exist.
I actually saw this article and it was about Facebook and them having to like answer for all these fact checkers that were coming out. Who's the person that's fact checking? Is it you, this person, like this random person who has your own opinion, so you're gonna fact check what? Who like
I know.
who are these people? Who are they?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's just someone who's like, I don't believe with that. I don't believe in that. So like fact check.
They found the fact checkers were like, I don't know, they're tied to the evil families too, and the elites. It's like some random guy
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I disapprove.
Which is okay, like have your opinion, that's completely fine. But like you can't tell people that they're wrong without like even they're like, I don't like that idea, so it's wrong.
Cancelled.
Yeah. Like just because someone has a different point of view than you, or like you might know something that you might not, or like might come from like a different area of understanding, doesn't mean that it's always wrong.
Yeah. So back to the oil-based medicine, right? So in the book, it
Mm.
talks about how, you know, eventually the medicine was starting to cause cancer, and so
Mm.
what they did was they started the Cancer Society to, like,
Yeah.
you know, to essentially to promote and eliminate all those news. So like you, so you know, it's kind of like a way to prevent news coming out to the public
Mm-hmm.
that, oh no, these medicines are causing cancer. So now they're just framing it as, here, we're gonna cure cancer, but you are the one that's causing cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's kind of like this tool that they've created to like keep us on this, I guess, slavery context where we're dependent on them, on the food, we're dependent on them on everything. And but it doesn't have to be like that, you know. Like you can find a way, people.
There's they're still doing that today, and
That's true.
everything that you see and watch on like news propaganda, it's all propaganda,
Yeah.
because they all have a script that they're reading from to tell you
Mm-hmm.
this information because they're funded by a certain whoever the heck you are.
Yeah.
Like the person with the money. Like
Mm-hmm.
these people, just like you're saying, King, he like came in with this great idea. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna like make all these medicines, and then people started getting sick from these cheaper medicines. Then he created like the American Medical Association, AMA.
Yes.
And then he like created like the Cancer Society because people were getting cancers. So if you like dive into like learning about how all of these systems came about, it's messed up,
And guys,
because then you start to see the whole picture.
yeah, and you know, like this is something that I've learned. It's like some, like, guys, do the research. You know, like, to whoever's
Mm-hmm.
listening, go out there and do your research. Don't just listen to what we're saying. Just go out there and do your research, and you'll be surprised with what comes, because yeah.
These are not conspiracy theories. These are
No.
literal facts, like written down of the people who own these companies. And like the only way that we can like change is if we start to notice like, hey, like something doesn't seem right with this. Like, why are so many people dying of cancer?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's literally, and we're poisoning ourselves with the food that we're literally eating. Like, you know, we're not having healthy things to tap into food, like literally anything else. Music, because they have learned how to take it and control it.
Fluoride in water,
Mm.
all that
Yeah.
jazz.
You know, something. So this is something that I find interesting, right? So I'm looking at the timeline of the world, and you know, Catholic Christianity, and you know how like and there are times where they would deem a woman of, you know, who studies medicine, the stars, astrology, whatever, they would deem that woman as a witch, right? And they would create that history of like they would scare people of like, don't do this because if you study this, that's the devil's work. And you know, it just takes us away from the from our power, you know, the power of to be creative, to create. And that's something that we want to really like shatter that matrix. It's like this, you know, it's like this mask that we have and we can't see because, you know, what we see is what we're being fed onto, you know. And that's, you know, going back to our previous podcast about the school system, you know, by the time you are conscious, by the time that you can think, then they take you out of your home, and then they say, here's what you need to learn, here's what you need to think like this, do this, da 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 da. And if you don't, you're you know, you're stupid, or you don't, you're I don't know, whatever name they call you, right?
You'll never
And
amount to anything
yeah,
if you
yeah,
don't complete our courses.
yeah. And it's like, why, people? And it's, I think for me, the answer that comes to my own mind is because it's profit for someone, whoever that person is,
Mhm.
you know. um but yeah, one of the things that, you know, so now, you know, we want to just keep kind of exploring this idea, but at the end I have some things that I want to share, you know, some solutions on how we can slowly break away from this, because as you know, as I mentioned before, our belief system is what makes us feel safe. And for most people, you know, as adults, they've lived their life believing all these false narrative, believing an illusion, right? And what happens is, if you take that away, it's like, you know, they're they're terrified. And so yeah, we'll explore a little bit later on things that we can do to slowly integrate that and slowly, you know, crack that mask so that you can see the world for what it really is.
Because it's literally everywhere you turn. Like false history, even like what you're talking about, it doesn't even have to be like from a textbook. It can literally be like the false history of like, hey, what's a TV? What was that originally created for?
Mm.
Do you know the history of it?
Or a microwave.
Because it was, or a microwave, or like your cell phone for that matter. Like all of these things are a false history because they were literally meant to control you, you know?
And even like the scientists, like we're seeing this happen with doctors in the real reality, but in history, right? Like, look at Nikola Tesla, look at like some of these huge groundbreaking scientists, doctors, like tons of doctors too that have cured cancer, right? And then all of a sudden their laboratories are burned down. That's
Yeah.
not just happening for no reason. Like they're trying to destroy what doesn't go along with their agenda, you know? And so there's tons of like people who were, you know, in history that were totally just taken out of the timeline. Like, poof, you're gone.
Yeah. You don't exist anymore.
And it's funny, like you were saying before, King. Not only did they control these societies of like school and like food, all of it, they also controlled the media and like what got out and what you wanted, like the information that you need to know. This is the best medicine, like try this out. And then like everything else was labeled as like quackery. If they didn't like it, you
Yeah.
didn't fit the mold, like you weren't going to be like winning a prize anytime soon.
Yeah.
You know, you could cure cancer, and people have, just like you're saying, Alyssa, and like the information can be out there, but do you think it's helping anyone? No, because people are like, "Oh, that's quackery. That's not real."
That's woo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because it's like most people just, yeah, I don't know what's wrong, but maybe it's, I think one of the reasons is that programming early on, and it's the the trauma that is passed on. Like, here you go, you got
And
from, yeah,
conditioning. We
conditioning,
know we know what's wrong.
yeah.
We really do know what's wrong. It's literally that whole training that we've already like come out to like be the way we are. All that school training, all of it from before. That's why we are the way we are.
Yeah, one of the things I think to really get out of this whole matrix, this false history, is to detox. Detox your mind, and that's something that I think it's funny because sometimes I tell my friends, hey man, just do some detox, like stop watching TV, and and then what do I do then? It always goes back to that confusion. It's like, well, what am I supposed to do? And it's like, damn man, like, I don't know, figure out what you like, what you love, but it's like, yeah, one of the things that I believe can, really help someone see the world for what it is first thing is meditation, because when you meditate, and I'll say this forever, like when your mind is quiet, traumas comes out because, it's like your body has the chance to speak. It's like, and then, once you release all of that trauma, now you're like, okay, now you're in a space of pure awareness, and then you can really see. It's kind of like, I haven't tapped into that yet, but I know I will. I know we all will. um but yeah, detox your your surroundings first. Just try to be alone, really, like spend time alone. I think that's one of the things that I would suggest for someone that is struggling with figuring out who they are, and struggling with their beliefs, and like, I have some friends that are, for me, I'm grateful because I was in that spot too, where I started questioning things and I didn't know who to turn to because nobody had the answer. Because the truth is, the answer to your question is, you're the only one that can, that knows the answer to that question. And so, you know I met this one guy one time, and he was saying, like, people pray to God when they need help, but they don't realize is they are the only one that put themselves in that problem. And then I was like, whoa, that's very deep, but it's true. In any situation, it's like you created that problem. Now I'm kind of going off tangent here, but detox yourself from everything.
I was just going to say that kind of goes into the big pharma medications too. Like, we're seeing mass anxiety, mass depression, reliance on these synthetic drugs, like these guys were talking about, the petroleum-based drugs that have insane amounts of side effects. You know what I mean? Like, the side effects outweigh the benefit by, like,
Yeah.
100 times for you not to take that drug. And yeah, we're just seeing the reaction of people to this reality. Like King is saying, we need to become stronger. We need to detox from this synthetic dehumanization, just like fake, false reality. And we have to become stronger, and you've got to start training yourself to become stronger and strong enough to heal, strong enough to deal with it, strong enough to purge it, hold it, heal it, so.
Yeah. And on the medication thing, it's crazy because a lot of the medication they put you on, actually, like you're saying, it has worse effects on you than the thing that they say it will help you with. I know one of the big ones is birth control. Like, it's really, really bad for you, but people, like, doctors recommend it to people.
Yeah.
They say, oh, you're having menstrual cramps, okay, take this. And it has, like, you can research it. And it's so funny, my mother told me this. She said, because I took it a while back, and she said, don't read the labels because on the label, it has all of these warnings about all of these awful things it can do to you. But people, for some reason, are just like, whatever,
Don't care.
don't care. I need to take it. Yeah, we've become like numbed out to all of the and even with food too. Like my buddy, he said, I'd rather eat a Big Mac than eat soy because now like things are getting twisted, genetically modified and twisted, and people are like, oh well, the good things aren't even good for you and the bad things are worse, but I don't care because like why would I detox when people like assume that they're gonna get sick anyways.
Because you are gonna get sick anyways. Because, like, it's so true, like you're saying. The good food isn't even good for you anymore.
I was just gonna say like tofu and stuff. Like people are eating this as like a substitute, but it's not actually amazing for you either.
Yeah.
Even our fruits and our vegetables. Like, okay, there was like a little while back where Monsanto was taking over things, and like they've taken over most farms probably in North America. Let's just say. I don't know if that's a fact. Don't quote me on that. But Monsanto will dip their seeds in 3 different batches of chemicals, laser etch Monsanto onto it, plus its like identifier number, and use those to plant it. Okay, so this is like our fruits and our vegetables, like our food that's literally being ingested. Okay, what I've learned over the last little bit is that if the bugs don't even want it, you don't want it either, because these foods are not good for you. Even though they're coming out of the ground. And I'm not saying all of it. You like want to be searching more for like farm fresh food if you can find it, if you're so lucky to be able to find it, or even growing your own foods, because we have the types of things now to be growing our own foods, even if it's just in small amounts. It's only for you, right? It goes hand in hand with the detox, because the food that you can get nowadays, your friend wants to eat a Big Mac over soy. He'd probably rather eat it over salad as well, because that salad is like $20. And at Big Mac, at least you can get a meal. Like,
seriously, that's the other huge thing, is that organic is like so expensive. Anytime there's some local organic grocery stores over here, like Blush Lane and Sunterra. If we go shopping there, like if we get all of our groceries from those stores, it's like triple the price from if you get it from like Superstore. Because it's, and I don't have an opinion on why it's so expensive. I think maybe because of the labor that is going into it, instead of it being mass produced and it being, genetically modified so that it can be, 3 times the size or a brighter color or whatever, synthetic. But it's insane, like you're saying, like people hardly have the choice to eat healthy because there's so many other things that they think that they need to worry about other than getting that organic piece of fruit. Like, is that really going to save their life? Yes, but they can't even, they can't disregard the other important things in life, and it's quite sad.
Isn't that crazy? Like you look at an apple, and it's like this apple is not 100% apple. There's like some chemicals in this, and it's genetically modified or whatever. It's like, yeah, and that's the first, like when I came here, it's kind of like the first time that I experienced that, because like, biggest example is apple. When you bite into an apple, it's like sweet, and but there are some, when here I've learned that they make it genetically modified so that it would grow bigger with less time, so it would produce more yield. And it's like, man, why would you do that?
with less nutrients.
Yeah. Get it now.
Yeah, there's this guy out there. His name is Dr. Zach Bush, and he's like a 3 time certified doctor, one of the only ones in the US. And he's working with a bunch of farmers in North America now to start switching their farms over from Monsanto chemical farms to organic.
That's awesome.
And just on Grace's point, the funny thing is that when you switch back to organic, it's way cheaper for them. These farmers are so depressed when they have the Monsanto seed because it starts killing the ground. It costs them extra money. They're drowning in debt, all of these farmers, committing suicide all the time. Like, it's a huge problem. And then it's actually like, yeah, it takes a little bit of money to switch over back to the organic farming, but you don't till the ground. You don't do all these things that these chemical farmers have to do. And yeah, I've heard lots of stories of like farmers switching back to organic farming, and they're like thrown out of the like farming, you know what I mean, society, and everybody hates them and just thinks they're snobs and stuff. And it's like, it's crazy for the farmers. It's really, really sad. But yeah, Dr. Zach Bush talks, like, I highly recommend looking into him because he talks about how we only have about 16 years left to like fix this issue, this food issue, because we're going to have so much health issues. He says in 16 years, we will have so much health issues, we won't be able to take care of the amount of sick people on the planet. And like, we will go extinct. Like, he's this serious about his numbers. He has all the numbers there, all the facts. He's like a very certified doctor. And lots of people have been watching him lately.
And you know that this is true because just look in the last 50 years of like just how the allergies have gone up. Food allergies, normal allergies, like, and sickness. People are getting sick all the time because we're literally feeding our body with garbage. And most of the things that we do eat turns into sugar in our bodies. Right? So it's a slow poisoning. But again, slowly poisoned. I have cancer society, more money. It's this
Sick
never-ending sick system cycle. But there's ways to get out of it.
Yeah, because we're the ones feeding it, right? Like, we're the ones going and buying those GMO vegetables. That's why it's more expensive. If we all went and bought the organic ones, all the farmers would have to organic farm because it's the biggest demand, and it would switch over. We're the ones creating the system. These evil, whatever, you know, elite people are not the ones to blame necessarily. You have to come out of that blame game because we are the ones creating it. They've tricked us into doing it, but you're the one feeding it. You're the one creating it.
Imagine if, like, just for a couple weeks, we all, like, humanity was like, you know what, we're just gonna go all organic. The people that are on top, like in Monsanto, they would panic. They're like, oh, what's going on? Whoa, shit. You know, and that's the power that we have, and I think not everyone see that.
Well, Monsanto had so many lawsuits against it. They actually just sold Monsanto over to a German company called like Brunner or something, to get away from like paying all those lawsuits out. So Monsanto's not even a thing anymore, apparently. But it's like a whole new 2.0 thing they have coming out now for genetically modified food.
So it's time to like meet. It's time to like meet your own farmers, become a farmer, or just like, you know, source local food.
Yeah.
Stuff that's like good for you, because your body will tell you exactly what it needs, what it wants. You can like hold that apple in your hand and like literally ask your body and be like, hey, do I need this right now? And it'll tell you.
That's true.
And that brings me back to the point of false history. Like, we're taught that we need like 3 meals a day, you know, and we need to like be taking in all this food. And we're also taught that like back in the day, they killed a bunch of animals and hunter and gatherer, right? And it just like, I don't know, like I don't vibe fully with that's how it used to be in back in the day. That's my personal opinion, but I think we used to eat a lot less and probably fully vegetarian, and really clean diets, because like I don't know, like I've really trained myself as I've really evolved. I've needed a lot less food. I eat like 1 small meal a day, and the rest of the day is maybe like a, piece of broccoli here and some clean fuel if I feel like I need it. But we're trained to think we need all this food, which weighs us down, tires us to death just eating some of these poisons that we're eating and the amounts we're eating them in. It's interesting. Like, you really have to ask yourself, are they telling us the truth? Like, do we need this much food? Do I feel like my body needs this much food? Like Becca just said, ask your body. Because I think back in the day, they ate a lot less than we think they do.
It all goes, again, a part of the system. Consume, buy more. Like, you're never going to be full if you don't eat. So, like, just indulge yourself. Like, we're not supposed to be breaking to the brims full. We just need enough to, like, keep your body going and happy and healthy. Like, we're not supposed to have 3 meals a day. At least I don't think we are. We're supposed to eat, like, when you're hungry. And, like, okay, for the first little bit, if you were to, start detoxing, doing all these things, for the first few days, it's going to be hard because your body has been trained to eat 3 meals a day. So, you might be hungrier, but that's also in your mind, right? Literally, like, what I've been trained.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think there was a research. I don't know. Sometimes I read articles and then I just kind of remember what I've read, but never read the article. It's like they talk about how indigenous people, um, they would just wake up, eat some berries, and then they would just have like one meal with like the catch of the day or something like that, and then they're good for the day. Just hanging out. And yeah, and also when you fast, there's something about like, so with food, right? When we eat food, our body digests it, and that requires energy in itself. But when you fast, it's like, I don't know. For me, I don't know if you guys have done fast before. Like, couple, for me, there's a time where I would fast for like 16 hours, sometimes a day. I think, when was the last time? It was a couple years ago. But I remember feeling like very my mind was, the first couple hours was tough, just because my mind was just like, like, you need to eat food. I'm hungry. But once you kind of pass that, and then you just kind of set yourself down and meditate, and then you just go empty stomach, and then go on a fast, your mind will actually be very clear. Like, you have such like mental clarity. I don't know why. I haven't read the science behind it, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, and they do, like, there's been a lot of study on, I think you're talking about like intermittent fasting, right, King? Or
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
16 hours. And the reason that's so good for you is because, like we're talking about, you're not always supposed to be digesting, because it does take up a lot of your body's energy. If we're having a meal like at 7 a.m. and then at like lunchtime and then at dinner time and then a snack before bed. And I think too, the most important thing is listening to your body, because if you do feel like you want to eat, you should, like, go for it. Like, just trust your body's instinct, because food is, and view food as fuel, because that's what it is. And when you are eating something, view it as, I'm putting this into my body because I love myself. This is a moment of nourishment. This is a prayer. This is devotion to myself. This is me taking care of myself, instead of being like, oh, I gotta eat. Oh, what's quick? Okay, put this in the microwave. Okay, eat it quickly. Okay, next meal. Like, like, take it as, because I personally believe, on my path right now, like, I do like to eat, and I view it as, like, if I'm gonna have a meal, I'm gonna savor it, I'm gonna enjoy it. It's a sweet part of life. It is a very nice part of life. And it can be a moment of prayer to yourself, like, thank you, body, thank you, earth, really thanking the earth, because that's where it came from, especially if it's organic. It can be like a real connection to Mama Gaia, who provided this beautiful food for us. And looking at it in that way will also help us detox, and help us come out of eating disorders, and help us come out of thinking that we're always hungry. If we pray before we eat, if we look at what we're eating, use our sensations, and really, like, because it's so fun to eat if you
Yeah.
really like have like a moment with yourself and you're like, oh my
Yes.
god, this tastes so good, smells so good, you know, it's amazing. It's such a beautiful
It is
part.
a moment.
Yeah.
It is a moment for sure.
Most people now, I realize, are not very present when they eat. You know, they're on their phone, and I'm guilty of this too sometimes. But yeah, like you're right, Grace. Like when you eat with your food, it's just like, you know. Like I don't know how to like. I think you pretty much explain it very well. But yeah, like most people nowadays, they eat while they're watching TV. They eat while they're doing something, and you know they're robbing themselves from that experience of truly being present. And yeah.
And then the body can be present in digesting it. You're like, okay, body, we're eating now. Thank you so much. Like I have had so many problems if I'm anxious and I eat something and my body is not prepared to digest, and then I have a stomach ache for like hours and hours, and you really have to be conscious of what your body is asking for. And like if you're angry, or because the body also has to digest your emotions, which is an interesting concept. And if you're feeling anxious or angry and then you put food into your body, it's like we were saying earlier, like it like creates this even more density when you're already digesting those emotions. So yeah, that presence is so powerful when you are just like, okay, how am I feeling? Okay, eating, like taking the time to use it as nourishment.
That's actually so insane. You know what? That I just thought that's why we eat 3 meals a day, because like you're saying, Grace. Okay, so like your gut is like another brain in your body. It's literally like telling you things like how it should feel, how it's digesting, like it can make you emotional, it can like cause pain. And if it's always like you're constantly digesting, you can't be like listening to like that gut feeling, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
That just like blew my mind. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why you eat 3 meals a day, to like keep you from not like, because I've been saying this for so long. You gotta go with your gut feeling, and like, because your body knows things, and it's your brain, this sneaky little person up here, who like distracts you sometimes and like gets that like worldly training back in there, being like like don't go with your gut feeling. That's literally like rooted into the universe.
Yeah.
Like what the heck, man? Or it keeps you like, you're eating garbage food and then your gut is just gonna feel like crap.
Yeah.
And you're just gonna like, how are you supposed to listen to it when it feels like crap, man?
The gut is so intelligent. The gut, and that's actually where your nervous system is. I'm pretty sure it's in your like stomach or like your intestines.
I'm feeling some type of way about this because I like. I feel like it kind of blew my mind a little bit.
I've read that our gut produces 80% of the serotonin, or isn't it serotonin, like the happy mood. So it's like, I think it's an important factor when you want to venture into like mental health, because I think what you eat is also very important in that aspect, because yeah, if serotonin is produced here, then you gotta give it something to create.
And think about this too. Like I'm obviously like I'm not a doctor. I don't know like everything about these certain things, but like you're feeding your body and your gut, right? Like you're not actually, people are like, oh yeah, you gotta eat, it's good for your brain, but like, is it? Your brain like needs fat, okay, which you can get from certain things that you eat, aka fuel, avocado, nuts, lots of good things. But you're literally like, the first place it goes is into your stomach. So like really, you're like, that's why like food can be such an emotional thing, because it is your nervous system that's literally right there. That's why people can form these attachments of like unhealthy eating, because it feels so good.
And it fills the void. Like I read this this like PDF on eating healthy, and it is like an emotional thing. People just want to eat and eat and eat because they often don't have a connection to God or source, and they need to be filled with, like, that's why they overeat, and that's why they're constantly trying to eat, fill that void, fill that void, because they don't have that connection to source. And it can, like, they're, when you like are eating something and then it's like you're just like having the moment and you're just like, this is so good, and then it ends.
You just want to relive it
Yeah.
over and over. You're like, okay, I'm ready,
Yeah.
round 2.
Oh, go. Yeah.
Yeah, people, we need to like reconnect to the food isn't your god. It can be a very amazing healer. Food can be a healer, but it is not, it's not your god.
Yeah.
It's a blessing, really.
I think food is the best medicine because, they say prevention is better than cure. And if you give the body the nutrients it needs to keep, to be healthy, then you don't need to have all these pills, Just eat healthy. And,
That's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
Literally. Like,
you gotta knock it on the people's head because, all the programming is still there. It won't come in. It's like, oh.
and the false history of literally everything we've ever learned about food.
Mm-hmm.
Like, milk is good for your bones. No, it's not. Like, who freaking said that? Someone who worked at the milk company who needed to sell a little extra milk.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Got you, Billy.
they got you.
And I think everybody's heard this, but like we are the only species that drinks another being's milk.
Yeah, it's
Like, why?
yeah.
It's so gross.
And the way they get it too. It's like,
It's not humane.
I feel real bad. It's not humane. It's like and everything that is attached to it. Like, I was learning this a couple days ago, like just how everything is a literal frequency. So like, just imagine the trauma that cow had to go through for you to get that milk. That's the energy you're literally injecting into your body.
Yeah, you would get that frequency too.
Yeah.
With the meat too.
So I like, when you think of like Wagyu, right? Aren't they like cows from like Japan or something that get like massaged and like
Yeah.
fed delicious things, and like that's how things are supposed to be. Things are like supposed to like, yeah, I don't know, treated properly, nourished, yeah.
Have like a devotion. Yeah, because exactly. And then you're eating this tense meat that is like, and they had all of this adrenaline running through them and all of this, chemicals and not
cancer.
Yeah, like
that they literally will cut off and like give you the piece that's not cancerous. Have you guys seen that?
No.
Anyways.
That's crazy. Oh my god. And who knows what they inject in the meat too, chemical wise, after,
So how do we fix this? How do we make our lives better with the food that we eat? Where do we start?
For me, I think that the best way is, growing your own food first and foremost. Learning how to grow your own food. Learning about gardening and, just learning how to feed yourself, really. And then you can start, I think people can start there because when they learn about what they eat, that's, you kind of essentially you figure out, okay, well, this is the fuel for my body, and there's a lot of benefits spiritually in that area as well. When you see a seed go from like a nice tall tree, that's like, whoa, that's
It's
bliss
such a cool
right there.
experience.
Yeah. And it's like, when you experience that for yourself, that it changes you as a person, because you got to realize, like, for that tree to be there from a seed, you have to take care of it. You have to nourish it every day. You have to take care of it, and you invested your life in that moment, by taking care of it. So yeah, I think that when people growing their own food is a great start. And even here in winter, right? Like in Canada, we live in with winter. You still have, you still have 4 months of summer, 4 or 5 months of summer. You could grow tomatoes. We've been growing tomatoes here in the backyard, and I convinced my mom to like expand. I'm like, okay, now we're gonna have another area. We're gonna plant more, okay? And she's like, okay. So it's really nice. Yeah, that's what I would suggest. My one thing.
Such a cool thing. I think like I learned a little bit in Sicily. The way that they eat is they eat with the seasons. So like in Canada, you're used to like getting whatever at the grocery store because it's delivered. So all year round, you can pretty much get anything that you want. But in Sicily, they eat with the seasons. So to be able to grow your own food or like go to the farmer's market or whatever it is and like just eat kind of what you're supposed to be eating, like what grows where I am in season right now. Like even in Canada in winter, you can at least have like squashes and like apples and delicious things, you know? So, yeah, I don't know. Just growing your food is like such a beautiful thing, like King was saying, to literally get to see it grow from like a little sprout. You kind of like check it every day and like watch it grow and like literally grow what you're going to be eating. It's so cool.
Yeah, and I think they practice that in Ayurveda too. Like there are different, like they use the seasons because it's weird for the body to be digesting pineapple in December when it's not native to where you're from. And like the body is kind of conscious of that, and so many people have like indigestion or bloating. And I struggle a lot. I have a lot of like digestive problems, so I've done a lot of research into this. And there are specific, like you're not supposed to be eating carbs with meat. And then if you add like nuts in there and fat, these all digest at different rates. So, and then also if you're having like fruit and then you add in like carbohydrates, that also it creates the fermentation in your stomach. Yeah. Which
Didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Did not think of that.
Because and then you'll start having like digestive problems or acid reflux because one thing is trying to digest and then the other thing is being prolonged because they're trying to digest at the same rate and they can't. And
That's so cool.
yeah, there's I forget who it was that talked about that, but we can have it in the bio below. But yeah, like there's so much information on like what you're supposed to be eating with what to create the most effective form of digestion so that your body can be free of not digesting a meal you had like 2 days ago. And two, another thing I wanted to say is that when you're eating, it's really cool to be mindful of what you're eating that is alive, because a lot of the times we're cooking what we're eating and that takes out a lot of the dense nutrients that is in that vegetable, that fruit, especially okay, so if it's been sitting in the grocery store for like 2 weeks and then you take it to your house and then you're cooking it at like 400 degrees and then you're like, okay, this is so nutritious, like how much of the nutrition is still in that from when it was picked out of the ground and then cooked and then, sitting on your plate. I'm not saying you should go completely raw. I mean, maybe do if that's your vibe, but just thinking about how much of, alive plants, how much minerals, how much vitamins you're actually getting from the fruit you're eating, you can really prioritize healing over digesting. Yeah.
I just want to add to like another good thing to like save those nutrients, get as much as you can, is by making soups. And like, because like you're literally like boiling a nutrient soup for yourself. So yeah.
It's like making elixirs too. Yeah, like for me with food, I've always been like, just, I don't care to eat. I really don't care to eat, guys. I'm not one of those foodies who's like, yes, I look forward to eating every day. I think it's mostly because I have like this entrepreneurial side that's really efficient. And I think that like eating and like how much time we take to prep meals and cook, like we're saying, and like, oh, we have to have all these things with this meal, like it just takes forever. Okay, like I'm not about that. I'm not about that. You
That's
could
true.
just give me
Yeah.
like a freaking like straw full of something that my body needs, and I'll chug that down, and I'll be good to go all day. So yeah, I've really learned to just like kind of follow my body. Like they're saying, I eat fully organic. I live like, you know, in downtown in a city, so it's hard for me to grow my own food. However, we try. And are looking to definitely be able to grow our own food once we get our land together. So I eat like as good as I possibly can. And like we've kind of said, it's better to eat, like we do not need this much food. You can train yourself and help your body get back to a state where it can eat a lot less so you can afford the organic options if that's what you have to do. And like, yeah, like Grace is saying, eat raw, do the fasting. I saw a study that studied 3 different things. So it studied someone who fasted, someone who ate pescatarian, I think, and then the other person was vegan. And so they studied like how each of these lifestyles healed the person and kind of brought them back, like gave them more lifetime ahead of themselves. And the fasting was the best one by far. So that was just like fasting for like 5 days where you're just like drinking water and maybe eating like a couple berries a day and really putting your body through a intense fasting process of like 2 to 3 days. This is something you'll need to research before you do, especially if you're just jolting your body from eating 3 meals a day. You definitely don't want to just jolt it and like water fast for 5 days in a row. Definitely take it slow. I've like trained myself to go 1 day, then 2 days, then 3 days. And that's as much as I've got up to so far. But I love fasting, and I love like figuring out the like, you know, highest nutrient foods that my body needs so I can just eat as little as possible and not waste my time cooking. Because I think that's another thing that built into the system is just like the amount of time that takes away from us when we need to cook 3 meals a day is a lot of time that we could be spending creating, being in the joy of life. You know, like as Grace was saying, and let's enjoy our food, but like, do we need to do that 3 times a day and spend all this time cooking? Like, I think that's a little overkill.
Mhm.
For sure. I'm thinking about too, like in the history, um, like housewives or like the people who like kind of ran the house. Um, they would spend like all day cooking, especially in Asia. I think they spend like so much time cooking, but that's also cultural, and it's yeah, like I think too it depends on where you're at. Like I know some people really see food as like an art form and all of this stuff. So it definitely depends on, you know, what you're here to do. But yeah, on the healing path, I think it's definitely like you're saying, Alyssa, like I've done fasting days and I am so creative. Like I'm like taking like a self-healing day and I'm so revived the next day. Like it's such a breath of fresh air to not be in such a system of like I have to do this and I have to do that. And yeah, I think just listening to your body is definitely the way to go. Just use your intuition, and your body will tell you exactly what it needs.
And it brings in, sorry, just quickly, the same point as like we always talk about. But like if you're having problems with overeating, or if you're eating because it's emotional, which most of us are, that's why we eat that much, is because we're in a traumatized society and we're in so much pain, whether unconscious or conscious. The food is really feeding that void and distracting us again from that pain. So that's why it's important to do the healing work, and then you'll notice these things, like you'll want to eat healthier, you'll want to eat less, or go through these different phases with your eating patterns. we focus inward first. Like, let's do the inner healing work, shift these frequencies, and that will attract different frequencies for us to bring into the body. So, yeah, instead of trying to willpower through a different diet, let's do the inner healing work.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna wrap things up here, guys, pretty quickly. But before we do you guys have any last words, any last thoughts that you wanna conclude?
I would say stop taking advice from outside sources and start listening to yourself, your body, your soul. What is your body asking for? What actually feels good when you put it inside of you? Like, if you're eating a meal, do you feel energized after? Do you feel like you need to take a nap? Like, take note of, your body's responses to these things that you're putting inside of you. And yeah, just prioritize yourself. Even if other people are like, no, that's weird. What are you doing? Why aren't you eating like the rest of us? No, why aren't you drinking this? Just, they don't understand. Or maybe you can help them understand that you're trying to take care of yourself. Yeah, we can all heal together if we just, love ourselves and love other people and share this amazing information.
For me, just be more curious and don't be afraid to ask questions, especially the hard questions. And yeah.
I feel good. I love you guys so much, and yeah, let's continue this healing path together. Let's do the inner work, like I just said, and like allow that outer reality to shift for you, because it will, and it'll be beautiful, and you'll be so happy that you're dealing with these frequencies within you that are creating and maintaining this outer structure of a sick society.
All right, and with that, we wrap things up. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great day. See you soon.
Bye.
Love you guys.